Hi, everybody. I'm Kat Bailey, and I'm joined by Casey DeFreitas, and we are here to talk about Pokemon. And a lot of discourse around Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl recently, especially with the game breaking street date and coming out. Once again, the Pokemon community is reacting strongly. There's been a lot of discussion about the Pokemon community being kind of toxic. There was an interview with Axios in which the Pokemon Company International Marketing Director talked a little bit about how the Pokemon community is reacting to these games and what their reaction is. And Casey, having looked at it, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Pokemon companies saying that they've, quote, heard a lot and that they have very thick skin these days?
Man, I feel like these answers are pretty thin and don't actually give us a whole lot of information. But at the same time, I completely understand because Axios was speaking with, as you mentioned, the North American branch Pokemon Company Director of Consumer Marketing, JC Smith. They were not talking to Game Freak specifically. They were talking to a representative of the company. So, of course, they wouldn't know the minute ins and outs of what's going on and what they're feeling. But I think it's nice to hear some recognition that they are at least listening, but it also sounds like obviously there are struggles as there are in development of games. So they hear us, is what they're saying, but there's also a vision for what the creators want to provide, and it's a matter of finding that balance throughout. So I think we're kind of getting something of what people maybe have been asking for in Pokemon Legends Arceus coming out, but it's interesting that this came out at the same time that the discourse was happening with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, because this interview wasn't directly related with that discourse. It just happened to come out around the same time. They're specifically talking about the 25th anniversary of Pokemon and asked a bunch of questions about Pokemon, not just specifically the discourse that Pokemon has been seeing over the last year or so.
Yeah, I think that Pokemon is currently struggling with the fact that there is a diversity of fan bases under a big tent. So you have the people who are the hardcore competitive battlers. You have the people who have a lot of nostalgia for Pokemon but have gotten older and they want more complicated games. In Japan, in fact, they would say often that people graduate from Pokemon to Monster Hunter. Right? You go from the kid version to kind of the teenage version, but there are plenty of adults who are like, I love Pokemon back in the day. Why isn't the series grown up with me? And Pokemon will say, well, Pokemon is meant for kids. Mm-hmm. But it does seem as if the Pokemon Company is hearing what the fan base is saying and trying to create these kind of more experimental, different experiences with spin-offs like Pokemon Legends Arceus. Having said that, I kind of understand, Casey, why the Pokemon community is a little bit the way they are, because frankly, Pokemon's weird. It is a weird series in terms of how it'll introduce features and take them away. The production values aren't always great. And the Pokemon fans have kind of, I want to say, suffered a little bit over the past 15 to 20 years. And maybe the breaking point was when the full national dex was kind of taken out of Sword and Shield, or there are a lot of rumors as to why that ended up happening. And ever since, I think Pokemon fans have been less likely to give the benefit of the doubt to the series. And that's why we see so much kind of discourse, as we're saying, around Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl.
We heard about it at E3, where Junichi Masuda said that we were not going to have the full national dex available to be transferred into Pokemon Sword and Shield. And my knee-jerk reaction was to be obviously upset about it, because I had Pokemon that I've been bringing through the generation since the Game Boy Advance, which that's a long time to have Pokemon with you. But at the same time, the more I sat on it and the more I thought about it, most of the games, actually pretty much all of them, don't allow you to trade between generations until much later in the game or until you are finished with it entirely. And pretty much all I did with my old Pokemon was to transfer them into that game and let them sit there. I wouldn't actually play through the story with them. So I realized, this won't actually affect me that much. But that's kind of where I landed on that situation. But at the same time, I understand the discourse around it about people wanting to keep those Pokemon with them and wanting to play with them in the new games with the new graphics, even if people say they're not that great. But it's difficult, right? Like, we don't actually know the ins and outs. And I know some of the discourse around that was accusing Game Freak of lying as to why they weren't going to implement all of those Pokemon into Pokemon Sword and Shield. But there are more than 900 Pokemon. We are approaching 1,000 now. That is a lot of that's a lot. And I just thinking about it, like what other game has allowed us to bring that much data and old concepts from game to game over generation and generation over years and years and years? Not a whole lot. But man, I have so many thoughts about this and I'm just jumping all over the place. But Kat, I wanted to also reference the fact that Pokemon takes away and implements features every single generation. And man, that is confusing, I think, for everyone. Because I know,
especially because we're used to kind of more of a linear update path, right? With a lot of these games where it's like, well, it gets a new patch and it introduces new features and it keeps getting better. And Pokemon Company always says, no. This feature that you loved, that is for that region. It makes that region unique, but it's gone now. Like, we're out of that region, so we're not doing that anymore. And it's just the whiplash is really intense. And I think we're seeing that in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl a little bit. A game that is a remake of Gen 4. And a lot of people would say that Pokemon Platinum was one of the best Pokemon games ever made. Stuff like the Distortion World and the Battle Frontier were very much loved. And it's stuff that apparently will not be coming into Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now, Shining Pearl and Brilliant Diamond have other features that are really nice. For example, the ability to have Pokemon follow you around on the map. But you can see why people are confused. It's like, why wouldn't you just go with what was in Platinum? Why would you go with the original, like, kind of inferior versions?
No, I completely agree with that. I think it's very strange. I definitely assumed that the post-game would include elements from Platinum, and that is confusing. I know they're implementing a brand new post-game kind of element with Ramanas Park, but it's just not the same. I was excited to experience Platinum's endgame in like all brand new because honestly, like I barely remember Gen 4. I do not remember it very well. It is the farthest and furthest away gen in my memory because all of the other ones up until this point have gotten remakes that I have revisited more recently than when I had originally played Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. And there's also some other features that are also confusing because yes, this is a new Pokemon game, even though it is a faithful remake. Some might expect newer features like Gigantamax or the beloved and never revisited Mega Evolution in the Diamond and Pearl remakes as well, and they're not in there. And you might have some people expecting Gigantamax. I mean, it's the new thing for this generation. Why isn't it in this new Pokemon game? And it's not. And
especially given that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire had things like the primal forms.
Yes.
And things like that. And it connected much more readily. To your point, Casey, I think that this feels like much more of a quick and dirty kind of remake. Like it came together very quickly. It's going to be in the Unity engine, which I think is really interesting. And it definitely has new features. But also, there are features that are apparently going to be added in after the fact in later updates, including, I think, the global trade system and that kind of thing, which I think is pretty interesting. But we're running out of time. The last question I want to ask you, Casey, is should the Pokemon Company International kind of stay the course and go with the formula that has worked with it so well for 25 years now? Or is it time for a shakeup?
Can I say both? Okay, look. And one other thing I just wanted to mention is that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is technically outsourced. Game Freak is not working on it. This is being developed by ILCA, and it is being co-directed by Masuda, so it's not entirely hands-off, but this is not a primary Game Freak project because they are working on Pokemon Legends Arceus. And I think what they are doing now, I want to see more of. Legends Arceus is obviously a very big experiment, kind of like how Let's Go was an experiment. But I'm way more excited for Legends Arceus because this seems to have more traditional RPG mechanics in it, and it does seem to be growing up a little bit compared to the core games. But I also understand they want to keep the core games extremely accessible for all generations of Pokemon lovers that are out there, from children to adults like us. And I'm hoping that they stay to the course with that while retaining some of the more successful features that people like instead of completely getting rid of them and starting from scratch. There's so many features from previous games, not even just the gimmicky ones, but quality of life features that I would love to keep from game to game. And with Pokemon Legends Arceus, I would love for them to continue experimenting with different genres and different gameplay mechanics like this so we can see a little bit more mature gameplay from the Pokemon series.
Well, you can go read the full story from Logan Plant over on IGN.com. And also thanks to Stephen Totillo and Axios for the original interview. In the meantime, thanks to Casey for joining me for this conversation, and we'll see you on IGN.
So fluffy. Its eyes are round and yellow. What's that? Ah!